Welcome to Investors Insights. Our topic today is bull, bear, fork in the road. The reason we chose that topic is because there's so much data coming from both sides. The bulls are very positive, look at the stimulus. The bears are very negative, look at corporate earnings and what's being forecasted. And so with that, I am joined today to have a debate and discussion by my distinguished colleagues at the portfolio strategy side of Five Plan Partners, Bobby Norman, Trey Booth, Ashley Page, and Adam Van Zant. We've already met and had a great dialogue and debate, and we want to include you in on that discussion and give you the information you need to know in relation to how it can impact your portfolio. So on that note, Ashley, one of the biggest questions we've had has been about all the stimulus. How is that impacting the deficit? How will that impact the economy? Elaborate on that. You brought up some good points earlier this morning.
Glad to do that, Greg. As we start today, here on Monday, as we speak, the second round of stimulus money, which is $310 billion, is starting into the economy. If you remember from prior vlogs, we had already put another $350 billion in. That was exhausted in about 13 days. It'll probably be similar to that, if not faster here. But here's the good news. This program overall, when it is going to save between 50 and 60 million private company jobs in the United States. That's 50%, half of the private company employment in the United States. Staggeringly good figure. Now, a lot of people have asked, well, how do we pay for that? Because this time last year, we had a deficit that was $1 trillion. Now, all that funding has taken us to $3.7 trillion. To give you historical reference, that's pretty much where it was right at the end of World War II. But the great thing about it, also in the bull category, is because our interest rate and long-term funding has dropped, our service cost as a nation on the $3.7 trillion, interestingly, is actually less than the prior $1 trillion we had. So if there's any time to be handling a lot of stimulus into our economy this way, it's right now because the interest rates are so low.
That's an excellent point, and that's what people forget. So often we're seeing, hey, the deficit is increasing rapidly, but the reality of it is interest rates are at an all-time low. So really appreciate you giving that insight, which really tied right in then. Bobby, you had done some great research about what's taking place this week and what we need to be looking at in terms of earning projections. Talk about that in relation to what Ashley just talked about.
Yeah, Greg, a common question that we're getting from clients the past couple of weeks here is, how is the market up, even with the horrible economic numbers that we're seeing? And one of the reasons the market is up is the Fed. The Fed has taken significant action the past few weeks. They've cut rates to zero. They've rolled out a series of emergency and really unorthodox lending facilities to keep credit flowing. One thing we're watching carefully here is on Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, the Federal Reserve has their quarterly meeting. And one thing we're watching carefully is on Wednesday, Fed Chairman Powell will have a news conference. And while we don't expect certain action to be taken by the Fed this week, what Chairman Powell says Wednesday could be a market mover. So are we going to see a V-shaped recovery, a U-shaped recovery, and really how bad is the economy? And so it's very important to see the outlook from the economy from the Fed on Wednesday. And then also Bank of Japan, European central banks are all meeting this week. And what we're seeing is central banks around the world taking steps never seen before to keep the global economy up and running. And so watching very carefully, especially on Wednesday afternoon when Chairman Powell speaks.
Yeah, well, that's also why we said fork in the road. I really think this is a pivotal week as we start to move forward and start to see states reopen. All the economic conditions that are taking place here. We're getting ready to go through another transition in this pandemic and historic time. So great insight there, Bobby. Really appreciate it. And with that, Adam, you jumped in earlier this morning in talking about GDP. You want to elaborate some more on that in relation to the consumer?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Greg, one of the themes we've heard over and over through our research and through media is time will tell. Well, I think time will start to tell with this GDP number. We're finally getting some reports this week. This, of course, is the first quarter GDP number. So this is the first report after the coronavirus has kind of started in the month of March that we'll start to get some context to this number with the GDP. So what the GDP is just a snapshot of the economic health. And when I say snapshot, keep that in mind. This is an estimate. It is backwards looking. So it's going to look at the first quarter. It's going to look at the growth rate for the first quarter for our economy. And the more important thing is to see, will this be an indicator moving forward to the second quarter, to the third quarter? Of course, the second quarter is going to reflect back on what we're currently going through, and we might even see a jump in the third quarter. That is the hopes, and the people and the research partners we have talked to, the third quarter could possibly be the turnaround we're looking for when everybody gets back to their jobs, back to work, and the economy starts to open up.
So from that, we got to pick which road to take, as I said, fork in the road. Trey, elaborate even more on that, because you were talking about, looking backwards and in relation to earnings, GDP. And I think that's really important, because when you get to that fork in the road, you're thinking about where did I come from and which way should I go? Talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. So like Adam said, the first quarter GDP clip we'll get this week is backwards looking, but it does include the beginning of the economic shutdown. In addition to that, this week will be 1/3 of the S&P 500 companies will be reporting earnings, again, for the first quarter. So these are all backward looking data, but what you can do is we can look at how the data deteriorated in the month of March as the shutdown began, and extrapolate that into how much that may impact second quarter if we push forward. And so another thing we're looking at is the difference in overall GDP slowdown versus corporate America, the large cap companies that are reporting their slowdown. S&P 500 large cap companies typically don't include the mom and pop store down the street, where GDP encapsulates the large consumer, the total economy. And so the difference between how large companies are performing versus the overall economy is going to be very important to watch, because that's where the brunt of the pain is being felt going into the second quarter, has been those smaller companies, the consumer, the broad-based consumer. There's estimates that credit card use on discretionary expenses is down 95%. Year over year. So that's going to be felt on Main Street, which GDP reflects Main Street. The S&P 500 is more large cap companies, and so that discrepancy is something we're going to watch very closely, because we can take those numbers and then push them forward into assumptions for second quarter and then potentially third quarter. And the market prices in the future, not the past. But you've got to look at the past, analyze it to help kind of project the future. And this is our first chance to be able to look at and analyze Main Street versus corporate America, and that way we can project it out going forward for whenever this does open up. What does it look like? What are we left with? It's some very important data points. Even though it's backwards, we can use it to look forward.
Well, and as you said, important data point. It's going to enable us to know and have a better understanding which direction this market will go into as we start to see states reopen and test if this economy is going to pick up steam rather quickly, or if it's going to be a gradual process. And through all of that as well, we have to keep in mind the testing and the coronavirus and the data that's taking place. So on that note, we hope you've gotten a lot of information here. Understand we're navigating through this and looking at which way to go from here. We're going to keep you updated. We want you to see the pieces of the puzzle and how we have to put those together and understanding which direction we're going into. And also from the standpoint of keeping you updated using our smart technology, our high-tech, high-touch philosophy. So follow us on social media. Continue to watch these vlogs. By the way, if you go to our website, the COVID-19 Investors Insights bar at the top of our website, click on that, and you can see all the vlogs and information that we have been providing to our clients. And also for those of you as clients who have shared it with family, friends, and colleagues, we greatly appreciate that too. We've received some really nice compliments from people and introductions that you've helped us with people saying you really brought my anxiety down, you gave me a better understanding. And as we like to say here at Five Plan Partners, if we can provide knowledge and insight, that makes a difference. So we want to help people have a better, richer, fuller life. So have a great week. It's a busy week. It's not going to be dull, and we're going to keep you updated. Thanks.